welcome to the Code Clarity podcast. I'm Jean.
And I'm Rena, and today we're going to be talking about a very recently published case for Teva, which centres around their general manager of the UK business being interviewed in the trade press.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about the background to the case, or what happened in the case then, Rena?
So here we have it was a P3 Pharmacy article. P3 Pharmacy is a trade press magazine, and you'll see there that the interview was with Teva's general manager, and it was about, her belief that patient focus makes better sense. Now, the complaint came about because, unfortunately, during the course of the interview, certain things were mentioned. So what you'll be able to see in this particular image, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, is that although they were asked a question about one medicine, in the answer they mentioned another medicine and its indication. They then went on to say things about migraine, which isn't exactly the full indication for one of the medicines. And they also said things like the pen just makes it easier for patients. So someone felt offended enough to go, I don't think you can substantiate those. I think that's misleading. But mainly, this is a promotional article.
Okay, so a couple of questions I'm thinking there. So you just so it's a promotional article. I'll be interested to know how they ruled. So how did the panel view? Because you said this is trade press. So is trade press to the public, or could we argue that trade press is actually to our colleagues within the industry?
Yeah, so we have to be careful of this term, right? So it is being ruled that BMJ and articles like that are intended for a healthcare professional audience. Yeah. And it's also been ruled that Pharma Times and Pharma Marketing are intended for an internal audience. So when you have a P3 Pharmacy article, it's to go to our customers. I mean, the people who read that will be people who would be considered to be either healthcare professionals or other relevant decision makers. And that's the clincher.
So it's not members of the public, but it is healthcare professionals and other relevant decision makers we've got there. Okay, and so they quite clearly, obviously, promoted. So there was, whatever, all the aspects that you need for promotion around there. What I'm intrigued about is, again, you said that they were asked one question and they replied by talking about a different medicine on an indication. What was their understanding of what the interview was about going into that? Were they blindsided by this? I mean, was there a pre-brief as to what was the topic was going to be? Did they get to see what was going to be published before it was actually published?
So interestingly, their response slightly differed to their response to questions that were asked later. So in their original response, they'd said, it was clear from the brief that the journalists weren't going to ask questions about medicine, and they consider this to be a biographical piece about the general manager. Okay. Which is all good and well, but there's nowhere in the code that says that those things are exempt from other code restrictions. You can interview people all you like, but if it's going to be a promotional article, then the code is going to apply. They also said that they weren't going to be answering questions about medicines, which clearly they did. And when the PMCPA asked them questions, you could see that the journalist had always intended to ask a question about the medicine. So that kind of didn't look good for them. But they also said that they weren't sent the article for factual accuracy check. When the PMCPA asked them for all copies of emails, which is their right, by the way, during a complaint, they can ask for everything to be sent to them. And of course, they poured through it and they could see that emails were sent between the two organisations after the interview in relation to the draft article. So Teva couldn't really say, we didn't know what it was going to say. It's got nothing to do with us. They had every opportunity to have corrected that.
Okay. So again, I mean, I think just thinking then about how, because obviously it's good for senior leaders to be in the press and to be doing these type of articles. That's, so we should be able to do this. So we have to then think about, what does this case show us about how to do it compliantly? Yeah. So Should we think of how?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We should be able to do it, right? So if you're a senior leader or you're working in comms and you want your senior leaders to do interviews like this, number one, it is not sufficient to go, let's media train them. You need to code train them. They need to understand what promotional claim is. Number two, you need to give them a brief. And that means that the interviewer and the interviewee both need to understand the parameters that the interview is going to take place. They need to stick to that. And then number three, you need to check factual accuracy of the item. It is not sufficient for you to say they were interviewing us, it's got nothing to do with us after that. You are liable, so you're perfectly within your rights, even earned opportunities to go back to the journalist and say, well, just check that, please.
Okay, so
that would be my tips.
Okay, so train, brief, and check.
Not even rocket science, is it, Jean?
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rena.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.